6. This is Savoy 6. Go ahead. Over.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SitRep Modern Miniature Wargaming Podcast. I am at the sand table with all of your awesome hosts. This is G, and joining us tonight, we have Chris, Ralph.
Hello, everybody.
Hello there.
And Jim.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So, we apologize for the long pause between our Veterans Day special and this episode. I know we're going to be releasing this one a day later than typically. Us here in the U.S. and even Ralph, we've been celebrating our Thanksgiving. And so it's been a crazy, hectic week. A lot of people do a lot of traveling. I know, Jim, you traveled to see your dad, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, and I know I had a house full of people, so it's a big, busy time here. It's a kind of the unofficial, official start of the holiday season here in the United States. So, not much got done for me. So we'll just kind of walk into some of the things, try and catch everybody up. So, Chris, what have you been up to recently?
Waiting for mail. We've had a postal strike here. So I had mentioned a couple episodes back that I was waiting for some miniatures from Spectre. I got the miniatures yesterday. I ordered them about a month ago, and that's not Spectre's fault. That's Canada Post's fault, because they decided to go on rotating strikes here. But I did manage to get my very first Spectre miniatures. I've got, what did I get? I got the African Warlord miniature. I got a Mina LMG, which is a PKM machine gun. And I'm putting that on a pintle mount in the back of one of my UAZ Jeeps that I 3D printed. And then I got my very first Tier 1 operators from Spectre, and I'll be ordering some more. I just wanted to see what they look like. I'm trying to order a little bit from everybody just to get a good idea of what everybody's quality of miniatures, and these are pretty amazing, actually. So the next order is Empress. So I'll be getting some Empress miniatures, and I'm going to be getting some of their universal modern miniatures to use as Ukrainian soldiers.
Nice. Have you had any of the Empress miniatures before? Because I'm kind of curious about them myself.
I've had some of their other historical miniatures, but not any of their modern range. So this will be my first examples of their modern range. But their historical, like their Zulu War stuff, it's amazing.
Oh, you did not need to tell me that.
Yeah, it's really nice. Really nice.
Excellent.
So, yeah, that's about it. I got my part for my printer yesterday as well. So hopefully I'll have that fixed this weekend too.
Fantastic.
That's it for me for modern.
How about you, Ralph?
I dug my airbrush out that I got last Christmas to finally use it, and primed the Little Bird, so the body of the Little Bird miniature that I've been working on as a terrain piece. So that got primed. Well, it didn't actually get primed. I just sprayed it straight onto the thing. I did a black base, and then I went over the top with a black grey to give it just that coloured sheen. The interior I painted grey, so I'm going to go in with some paints on a brush to paint the figures up, and then I'm going to start building the seats out for the sides.
Nice.
And then put it together with magnet on the base onto those magnetized bases that are built out. So hopefully within the next, I would say 2 weeks, because of work and things, I should hopefully get one of my Little Birds finished. To take a break from that, I've been painting up a 4 of my tier 1s that I got a fictional force name for. They're called AFO Werewolf, which is just a small attack force. It's probably going to be 2 groups of 4, but this was a group of 4 Spectre Task Force minis with the military dog, so it's got a furry hand grenade ready, to have fun with the enemy.
Sweet. Didn't you get something else in the mail here recently from Spectre?
Would that be the black, which we'll talk about in a bit, the Black Powder Red Earth minis, which are absolutely amazing.
Awesome. So we'll talk about those in a little bit of detail.
Yeah.
So, Jim, how about you?
I feel very sad. I have no miniatures. I have been doing a lot of wargaming though, but my hobby table is my computer. So what we've been doing lately is we've been experimenting with using web conferencing as a remote wargaming tool with members of the On Tabletop Beasts of War community. So some of these battles have been in the modern era, depending on how you define modern era. So we started off with Bruce Lee, some of you may remember from some of the boot camps. We started off with him trying a game of 1943 Panzerleader in Tunisia.
Nice.
British versus British versus my Germans. That was a neat campaign. Given Andrew's background, I built a scenario just for him where he had a battalion, so about 600 troops. It's a platoon-based game, so every piece on the table is a platoon. So his battalion had seized a bridge over a deep wadi that cannot be crossed except by a bridge. So he's got like 600 men trying to hold this bridge, some bridging engineers. So that's fine. Here comes the German Schützen battalion. That's about 600 grenadiers, and a comp group led by a platoon of 5 Tigers and about 60 or 70 other tanks and assault guns. He's got big problems. He's not going to be able to hold. He's got a battalion of dragoons coming up, so that's going to be Crusader 3 battle tanks. He had 15 of those, and 30 Shermans, the M4A2s, coming up behind him to kind of reinforce him, and a platoon of 5 Valentine bridge layers. So his mission was to hold that bridge as long as he could. I was trying to take the bridge and blow it up if I could. And basically, I got 20 points for every bridge I knocked down or blew up, and he got 20 points for every bridge that remained standing at the end of the game.
Wow.
So one bridge got blown up. He got that Valentine bridge layer across the table, and we were able to do all of this in real time with webcams, with audio, and a shared desktop where I have an electronic game board. I mean, you know how Panzerleaders play. It's a Hex Encounter, 1977 Avalon Hill game. But I've come up with an electronic version of that that I've designed where, I can share my desktop with people, and then they take control of my desktop briefly, and they can move their own pieces around. We roll dice, we have spectators, and a great time. The next day, we followed it up with some modern wargaming in the 1956 Sinai War between Israel and Egypt. November 2nd, 1956. We did the largest tank battle of that war. That's the Pass of Bir Kifkafa, November 2nd, 1956. We can talk more about that later. And at the time of this recording, we're going to expand that to Darkstar. That's the sci-fi tactical starship combat game. We're doing that tomorrow. We have about 12 spectators lined up for that. I'm going to have to start my own Twitch channel here pretty soon, the way things are going. I'm actually kind of serious about that.
Yeah, there you go.
And
that's a good idea, actually.
What's happening Sunday is some more moderns. I'm taking Arab-Israeli Wars. That's basically like the grandchild of the Panzer Blitz Panzerleader series from Avalon Hill. Later in the 70s, they came up with Arab-Israeli Wars. So we're doing a scenario from 1967 war. We're bringing it forward one step, so to speak. And we're doing the Israelis' 7th Armored Brigade's first assault into Khan Yunis. So that's in the Gaza Strip. We're looking at Chieftains and M48A2s. That's 82nd and 77th Armored Brigade. One of the company commanders in there was a guy who at the time, he was a captain. That's Captain Abedgor Kahalani. He became very famous in the next war, 1973, when he commanded 77th Armored Brigade, 77th Armored Battalion at the Golan Heights. He's the guy who named the Valley of Tears from the 1973 war. He wrote a fantastic book after the war called The Heights of Courage. I highly recommend this book to anyone who's interested in modern mechanized combat. It's 1973. It's still the best tank commander book ever written. This guy is the real deal. He's everything Patton, Rommel, Bronte ever wished they were, times 10. He's the real deal. He later became a brigadier general in the 82 Peace for Galilee invasion, and things didn't go so well for him there. But he's still like one of Israel's all-time military heroes. So we kind of we're gonna be channeling him a little bit on Sunday. He's going to command one of the Israeli tank companies in our battalion. That's Damon from the website is going to be playing the Israelis in that game. I'm going to see if I can stop him with my PLA, Palestine Liberation Army, and some Egyptian army on the opening day of the 6th Day of War.
Nice.
So no miniatures, but we have definitely been doing some modern wargaming.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's I don't know if you've seen it, Jim. I don't know if you're on Facebook, but on the Spectre Operations Wargaming, I don't know if Chris and G saw the Kyle St. Peter post about using Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So what he did was he got Tabletop Simulator. It's on Steam. It lets you simulate any board game, and there's a load of modules and things for different games. He simulated Spectre.
Okay.
So he got some miniatures. So he's got actual digital miniatures, some 3D buildings because it's on a 3D plane,
Right.
and it's got dice rolling and everything in it. And he basically created something to test the Spectre rules, as a solo player. But it does let you technically host games, because I've seen a couple of streamers use it for doing board games. They did, I think, Battlestar Galactica and things like that. So the actual proper board games themselves, but in Tabletop Simulator. So that might be something to look at for point of view of doing miniature on miniature, because the people mentioned here that they've used it for Warhammer and things like that.
How easy is it for you to write your own games for that, or do you have to use one of the vouchers that they provide?
Well, I'm assuming it's because it's a tabletop simulator. You are writing or using the dice, and you're just dropping in the objects. So there are some set ones, but it is a blank slate from what I can see, and you would just drop in, say, a map, and then have the counters and things like that. But it's done in 3D, so you can zoom in and zoom out and rotate around. So it would be almost like playing an RTS, but you're actually playing a tabletop game where you can zoom in, zoom out, rotate around, and things like that.
We can do all that. We can definitely do all that. We just don't do it in 3D.
Yeah, this is 3D, which is interesting from a point of view of miniatures.
Okay. I just have to find out how customizable it was, because people have often asked me about Vassal, like why I don't use Vassal. And frankly, Vassal is, Vassal's got a lot of great games on it, but you have to use the game as it comes. I mean, as far as changing, writing your own scenarios, changing the game because everything the game gets wrong, all games can get a lot wrong. I mean, all games get something wrong. I'm not a guy that buys a game and takes it home and says, I can't wait to play this. I'm a guy that either writes my own game or buys a game and says, I can't wait to use this to build something new as like a baseline or something. So there's going to be, like, I spent my lunch break today retooling all my Egyptian armor for Arab Israeli Wars. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's still broken in some areas. So I still have to go in there and have to make a new, they just made the Egyptian tanks way too weak. Well, they did. They took the 1943 from Panzerblitz, because it's mostly Russian armor from World War II. They took all that stuff, which is already too weak, in my opinion. They really cut the Russians. They made them way too. I don't know how the Germans lost that war as weak as they made their Russian units, and then they divided everything in half. So the Egyptian units in 1956, 67, and 73 in that game were just a joke. So anyway, we're retooling that. So that would be difficult to do in Vassal. I don't know how. I would have to research Tabletop Simulator, which I will.
I'm just putting some links in for you there, Jim, so you can have a look.
I totally see them coming across. I will look into this, because the solution we have now is great. It's becoming almost too popular. Like I don't know how many people. This is not Twitch. I don't know how many people I can host into this. There is a limit, and I don't know how stable it's going to be, or if it really takes off. Which it's taken off, man. I mean, this is becoming almost more than I can handle. I'm gonna have to find some more expandable. Just for spectators, for our Darkstar game tomorrow, we have 12. We have one person that wants to play. He's been waiting very patiently for about 6 months. So I finally got all this tech stuff figured out. And we have like 12 people lined up that want to watch this. They just want to sit there and watch. So yeah, I don't know, how much further I can push the solution I have in hand. I'm going to be in the market for a new one pretty shortly.
What's interesting, I'm just looking on Steam at that tabletop simulator, and one of the top games at the very top is Zombicide.
Okay.
So they've done zombie. It's a pack, so it looks like it's a downloadable pack for. So you buy tabletop simulator and you download the pack, and they've made Zombicide, which is $6.99 for tabletop simulator. So, from what I've read there, from the websites and the links I've just posted for you there, is you can make any game you want. So it's entirely up to you what you're making. Just these packs are extra, and there's community patches where I think. Where he said he got the miniatures from, where Kyle got the miniatures from, and the buildings, and they must have been free. So he's got Adobe in the image he posted up. It's like a Middle Eastern village, so there's some Adobe buildings and miniatures on either side. So
nice.
So I only have one more question on that front. Seriously, when are you hosting your first game?
Yeah,
because I'm on Command Tactical.
Let's do it, huh?
I'm on Command Tactical. I'm on, tank brigades, whole battalions of Israeli paratroopers. If you want to run something tactical in 3D, I would probably sign up for that.
Well, that sounds like we have a project there, Ralph, huh?
I've got some other things planned as well, so something to talk about a bit later. But it might be something I do maybe next year, but it's depending on my time, because where I work, my work's starting to pick up now, because we're starting to look at virtual reality and 3D modeling and 3D characters for education, because I work in the university. So that's my next big thing at work. So my time might be spread a lot thinner than what I normally would.
So what I'm hearing, I think, Jim, is he's saying, I think this is your job.
Yeah, I am not a sergeant, lieutenant, or captain gamer. I am a lieutenant colonel, brigadier general guy.
It might be something that we look at as from a community point of view and getting people involved. It sounds like something that we could do.
I can tell you this much: between the role playing game that Jerry is running on Discord, that's taking off, and now 3 simultaneous campaigns I have going: Panzer Leader, Arab Israeli Wars, and tomorrow the big one, Darkstar. The people on the community are ready for it.
Yeah.
Darkstar looks so good, Jim.
Yeah, Darkstar does look good. I already play in. Well, I run a Star Wars RPG game on Discord with Roll20, and the same group is the group that I play D&D with on Discord as well. But because the GM is, when the GM's not around to run D&D, I step in and run Star Wars. I have been anyway.
Is this the old Western game?
Yeah,
that's the old D6. Yeah, that's the good one. That's the good one. So, I played that back in the day.
So, but I use Roll20 for role playing, which is really good because it's got all the dice rolling in and character sheets and things like that. And we use Discord because it's free.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Just to close out, so like I said, we did Thanksgiving here, and I know it's probably going to get me in trouble, and they might revoke my Wargamer card. But I vowed not to start any new projects until I clear my project table up a little bit. Why is everybody laughing? I just don't understand.
That's the way to do it.
Lots of metal.
I have 2 rooms full of stuff that need to be worked on, and somehow, I've ordered some more Napoleonic stuff, and yeah. And then lastly, to round
Napoleonics. What are you doing with Napoleonics? We still have American Civil War.
I know, but I can't help it. It looks
cool. Hermagerd.
So that's why I said no more, no mas. So
right. Don't say no that.
I got to finish my boat from SASM. Get that Riverine boat done, and then I'll move on to the Civil War stuff. And so lastly, to finish out this break we've had over these last couple of weeks, I had to go to the range and qualify with my duty weapon. So some of you may not know, I'm also a part-time police officer, so I had to, and it was kind of eye-opening because I haven't had to qualify in a while because I'm just getting back into it. And I had to go through failure drills, and it was like being in the military all over again. Going through failure drills, and it just kind of reminded me of how do you translate that into some of the rule sets in modern miniature gaming. Because you can have weapons malfunctions, and how do you role play that or play it into the rule sets? In some of these skirmish games, obviously on tactical, strategic, it's at the bigger scale you can't really have it, but when you get down to skirmish. You could definitely put it in there, because I own one of the most reliable handguns in the world, and I was having jams for whatever reason, I don't know. So we had to go through a lot of failure drills. So it can happen no matter what the weapon is. So that's what I did over that. So moving into news, who would like to go first? How about go ahead?
I can. I mean, there's quite a bit I've noticed over the past couple of weeks. So, starting off was, of course, last week and this week, Spectre did 2 releases. Last week, I think, would be probably classed as one of the bigger ones where they dropped their minis from the joint project they're doing with Black Powder Red Earth. For our listeners who don't know what Black Powder Red Earth is, it's a collection. It's a comic book, a graphic novel series, and Spectre have signed up with these guys to do partnerships. So they're creating minis, but they're also going to be creating a board game, from what I can understand. And Black Powder Red Earth are looking at doing a PC game or a game in sort of 8-bit style graphics. So it's like the old 8-bit games. But Spectre dropped the minis, it's a 6-pack of special operators based around the Cold Harbor, which is their PMC inside of the comic book series, if I get that right, if I remember correctly. And they come with optics. So normally with Spectre, with their minis, you don't get the optics. You have to buy the optics separately. So whether that's the quad, the dual, or the smart sight, as it's called, they come with them inside the pack, and they are probably the best minis I've seen Stephen sculpt. They are absolutely stunning. They really are an absolute well worth the cost. I think it's £20 for the 6.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And they are really some of the best minis. They're all carrying modified like M4s or carrying assault weapons. There's no heavy weapons or support weapons in the 6. It's just a 6-pack of assaulters. Andy Zach on the Spectre Operations Facebook group has been posting up pictures as he's starting to paint them, and it's like, Andy, just stop it. I give up.
Yeah. Andy's like that.
Just take my minis, please. That type of thing. Today they dropped 2 minis as well. They dropped a female. They have a set called Task Force Nomad, which is the sort of the special ops in native clothing. So they dropped a female operator today for it, carrying a suppressed pistol. And they dropped a CQB FSB Russian as well today. They were dropped today on the Spectre's list as well.
Ralph, did I see that not the female, but the other miniature with the balaclava has something to like a 50? Is he packing 50?
All of the FSB, if you look at the description on the website from the miniatures, it's all the Russian FSB that they've done this with. All of the Russian FSB have have 50 caliber assault weapons. So the FSB kill team, all of them are running 50 cal.
Wait a minute, 50 cal assault weapons.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, what you've got to remember about Spectre as well is Matt does all the research is actually accurate. So these weapons do exist. It's the ASH-12 heavy caliber bullpup assault weapon is what they're carrying, or the SH-AK-12.
Whoa.
These are 50 caliber assault weapons.
That's got to be a cut down cartridge or something, man. That's got to be.
I used to pack around a Modus, and I can't imagine
it's
firing
not
something like that.
Full size 50 cal. It's got to be the shortened cartridge, almost like a Desert Eagle. In that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But still,
That's scary.
But still, can you imagine the recoil on a 50 cal assault weapon?
That's what the suppressors are for as well, is to give them that balance. Supposedly, because when you look at the weapon as well, the assault weapon, it's a bull pump. So
Yeah.
it's a bull pump assault weapon, so the magazine's in the shoulder stock.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't care how wet you have on it. The recoil off of 50, no matter what.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it's the same type of weapon as well. The balaclava guys carrying a 50 cal.
So here's,
my!
I'm going to give an observation. Assault weapon 50 cal is not your friendly neighborhood fighting weapon, because it's going to go through the bad guy, the house behind him, the car behind
And then another
them.
bad guy.
You know, I can't imagine
Shall
doing
we put-
CQB with that kind of weapon.
I mean,
I was going to say, let's put it in another perspective. We are talking about the FSB.
They don't really
Yeah.
care, do they?
No.
and on the one hand, it's gonna matter a little bit, like what the grain loads of those 50 caliber pistols are or 50 caliber bullets are going to be. You could probably have a manageable. Obviously, somebody has. You could probably have a manageable 50 caliber automatic weapon. And again, not all assault weapons are fully automatic.
That's true.
So maybe it has like a 3-round burst or something. And again, people have had ever since the HK Cause came out and in the mid 80s, followed by the USAS 12 and the Daewoo 12. You've had 12 gauge fully automatic assault shotguns, which I would much rather have in close quarter combat if I was unfortunate enough to be in close quarter combat. But again, I don't think those are full loads. I wouldn't picture firing like 12 gauge slug out of those things. That would definitely be at least some sort of pellet or shot or something like that.
I've just sent a link to what it actually is in real life.
Cool. You learn something every day.
It's like
Scary.
But yes, they are carrying 50 cal assault weapons.
Oh.
They are nice minis as well. Actually, the FSB assault team is really nice. I didn't get the FSB assault team, but I did get the Russian Spetsnaz. Which one is it? The urban one. It's the pack of. It's the Spetsnaz SSO squad with I got the Spetsnaz Alpha Sniper and the SSO MG, which is the guy with the backpack carrying is it a PK? It's a PKM medium machine gun with the Scorpion ammunition backpack.
Jeez.
So, these guys aren't playing around, I'll tell you that much.
No. So, the other thing as well that dropped on the Modern Miniatures, not the Modern Miniatures, on the Modern Miniatures gaming forum on Facebook was Underfire Miniatures. Showed off their 28mm Cold War US, which looked really nice. And that goes in with their other sets of Cold War. They've got Cold War, East German, West German, American, and Russian on their websites, all in 28mm.
Nice.
Which is a nice set to pop up.
Well,
The other thing I noticed as well, which can go in when we go to the topics about when does modern gaming start. Bolt Action next year are dropping a Korean War sourcebook.
What? How did I miss that one?
I saw it. It's about It was announced as someone on the Bolt Action forums posted up a French. I think it was French. Amazon or one of them about 6 months ago showing this off, but there was no date. The UK and possibly the American one now has a date, and it's August next year. They're dropping a Korean sourcebook.
All right, when are we going to see Vietnam? Come on.
Hold on. I was talking with Charlie at the Bolt Action Boot Camp, and he had seen where I had taken a World War II squad-based game that people are familiar with, that's Valor and Victory, and updated it to Vietnam in the Hue City 50th. I'm sorry, the Tet Offensive 50th anniversary series we did earlier in the year. So, needless to say, we started talking about how we could take another squad-based World War II game. It's kind of popular, Bolt Action, And now obviously I speak hex and counters, he speaks miniatures. That's two different languages. Nevertheless, we're taking the same journey, and I have been down that journey, and I know where all the landmines are. I know where all the tripwires are. I know where all the blind spots are. I know every single problem he's going to run into because I've done it myself. I've published the results. This Korea thing sounds like a staircase. They're building into it. To make a jump from World War II to Korea is not terribly.
No.
It's not. It's actually not a big thing at all. It's practically World War II the sequel, or World War II the post credit sequence, or whatever. But it is a step, and I don't know. I don't pretend to have insider knowledge or anything. I don't know what's going on at World War Games or anything like that. Just a quickly disclaimer of that. But there have been discussions. I can confirm that because I've been in them.
Nice.
And we may be circling back to that work as a consultant or give some kind of even if in an unofficial capacity. Hey, look, these are the things you guys are going to run into when you try to take a World War II system or a system that's popular for World War II and move it into Vietnam. You're going to have to worry about civilians. You're going to have to make civilian miniatures. You're going to have to introduce casualty evacuation rules. You're going to have to worry about everyone walking around with basically a light machine gun, not a submachine gun like they do in World War II. In Vietnam, they have a light machine gun, i.e. an assault rifle, AKMs or M16s. Mm-hmm. And, that's before you even get into helicopters. You're going to have to come up with some kind of hidden movement system. Yeah. And you're going to have to come up with a real difference between, and this is the bread and butter of modern wargaming. You do not see in World War II. If you want to look at the basic fundamental differences between World War II and modern gaming, you need any kind of a modern game system. You need a real way to handle the difference between a regular and an irregular force. You need asymmetric warfare. You need non-kinetic warfare. It's not two forces meet, point up your list, and have at it. Glory to the last man standing. It's a serious. And it's tricky math, and the players have to understand that, and the game designers have to go into that with their eyes wide open. So I certainly wish them luck. They do have their work cut out for them, and there have been discussions.
I think as well as the Korean War as a stepping stone for, say, evacuation in helicopters, can start with the Korean War because you had the mass units using helicopters to evacuate troops. And they did start using some insertion with helicopters, but I think France was doing it roughly a little bit later when France was in Indochina. I think they were using those as well. So Korea is probably a good starting point. I think the other thing as well is it lets them get used to, say, doing for fast attack aircraft, because they were starting to use jets more in Korea, weren't they, for bombing runs and things like that. So to take that into consideration for anti-aircraft fire and things like that. So it's probably going to give them that way of looking at their mechanics on how they can start dealing with more advanced technology. But the bread and butter of having a soldier with a rifle is still going to be what it was back in World War II, 45.
Oh, yeah, it's down to the web bolts. It's all the same equipment, yeah.
But it gives them the tools to start looking at some of the mechanics that will then lead into doing probably Vietnam.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll see what Warlord do. The thing that's got me interested is tuning their plastics. So you've got your Marines. You could technically still use the World War II Marine minis with a little bit of tweaking and just tune them with different weapons. So instead of carrying
talking about for Korea or for Vietnam?
Well, for both, really, I would have thought.
For Vietnam, it's going to get tough.
Yeah, it changes.
Korea's the easiest one because it's got no tuning. I think.
Change your M1 Garands to the M1 Garand carbines, and you're set. Maybe change some of the loadouts. There's more 30 caliber machine guns per platoon than there would have been in World War II, but it's basically the same. Yeah. Once you get into Korea, once you get into Vietnam, you've got You've got, I mean, body armor. I mean, you can get away with it at like 15 mil, but once you get up into 28 mil, the miniature, especially Warlord miniatures, are so detailed and so, you know, they're so awesome anyway. It's going to be tough. You can probably get away with a little bit of it in painting, but even if you do, I mean, where are you going to get your NVA or your you know,
True.
NVA and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's going to be the ones that we'll need to probably tool more for. You know, from the point of view of creating them and churning out the minis. But I think, you know, there's currently, as well as I know, and I'm on the group for this, is there is a unofficial rule set for bolt action in Vietnam. That's on. There's a Facebook group for it. That somebody's created the rules for bolt action Vietnam, and I know there's bolt action modern as well that somebody created a set of, you know, based off the bolt action one. So there are people out there doing it. It's just, you know, people keep asking Warlord, and it was on the forums, and you see it as, you know, it's
bolt action modern. Bolt action modern is conceivably very easy. It depends on whether or not you're doing like a realistic modern, you know, U.S. versus or British or anybody really versus like Afghans or something in you know. That's one thing. That's going to be very, very tough. But if you're doing it in a theoretical sense, like a Team Yankee type scenario, then it becomes very easy. It's not the weapons; it's the different kinds of armies. You have those asymmetrical, regular versus irregular armies. Like, you know, a Team Yankee type of scenario. You know, the Russians and the Americans going at it in Western Germany is going to be pretty much bring more dice. You know, and get a bigger table. But to do anything, as far as even go back into the 50s, if you try to do like the French in Algeria, the French in Indochina, or the Americans, you know, in early parts of Vietnam, now it's asymmetrical. And, you know, don't be fooled by the years. It's going to be a lot more difficult to do that in bolt action than you know, the other option.
All right, so I'm sitting here thinking about Vietnam and the idea of being able, to be able to do some A teams. You know, in the Viet Cong and your Montagnards, the Delta, the Highlands.
Spectre. Seriously, Spectre operations rule set. They've said that on both Stephen and Matt have said that Spectre's easy enough to, shall we say, tool for different periods. Because I was looking at it from, there's a bunch of PC games called Commandos. I don't know if anybody remembers the IDOS games where you controlled a small unit of specialists. You know, you had like a spy and things like that. But you could retool that to being, say, a group of 6 British commandos, you know, who are infiltrating a Russian submarine, a German submarine base or whatever. So, you know, tooling Spectre to do that, because the rules of Spectre give you patrolling and stealth and, you know, all of the things that you would use in that type of thing. But then you could then move them more towards doing SEALs, UDTs in the Mekong Delta, striking at bases across the border in, you know, in Laos and Cambodia and things as well. So that rule set, it's just finding the minis really. And there's a lot of companies out there do Vietnam minis. Assault Group, I've got a bunch of Assault Group, US Special Forces from Vietnam. And they're 28 mil and they look really good.
For our 50th anniversary series, we did the Battle of Long Vay. So that's 6 February 1968. I got 12. That's Charlie Company, 5th Special Forces Group. I'm sorry, Special Operations Group. Where most of the actual Special Forces action really took place, and that's in the north. That's way up by where the Marines were all along, you know, the Rock Pile, Camp Carroll, Kanto, all those places up around there, extending out toward Way City by the coast. And it's where North and South Vietnam, sorry about that, North and South Vietnam and Laos all meet. And that's, of course, where the Ho Chi Minh Trail is trying to get into South Vietnam, you know, from North Vietnam. And the Tet Offensive, they hit that area. So that's one of the only times, you see, there's a grand total, I think, historically, I think there's 12 Green Berets. The system we used was force on force. Of course, we cranked up our Americans as absolutely high as we possibly could. These are Green Berets, after all. So we made them the full like D12, and we maxed them out as far as the game will take them or whatever. And I just piled up. It's just about the only time People's Army of North Vietnam ever used armor in the field against Americans. They had what they called a battalion, which was really only like 11 or 12 tanks. I think only like 6 of them actually made it to the base. PT-76 amphibious tanks. So these guys are getting overrun by, I bought every single NVA, NVC piece I had, or not piece, miniatures. I actually did this in miniature. The results are on the website. And just pretty much attacked them from all sides. And the Green Berets, I'm pretty sure, did lose that game, but only barely. Because they had them in bunkers and all kinds of machine guns and stuff like that. Mountain guards were there. So there's a lot going on. And then historically what wound up happening was they wound up getting they had to evacuate the base, and their evacuation was covered by a massive strike of those AH-1 Sky Raiders that you see in some of those movies. So we did that on like turn 12 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I have to look it up in the article. But yeah, but Vietnam, we've done it. We've done it in miniature. It is possible. We used force on force. Force on force worked great. The only problem we had with force on force was I found, and others may disagree, force on force doesn't scale terribly well up into like larger battles. It's great for like squads, maybe an understrength platoon, but once you start talking about really big battles like Long Bay, or we also did some battles like Quezon and where else, Hawaii City, and all those big Marine Corps battles up there along the DMZ. It's where the game started to show its cracks a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely doable. We've done it, and we had a lot of fun with it. How well you could use other game systems for that, I honestly can't speak to that, but a World War II game would present some challenges.
That's my pieces of news anyway.
All right. Chris, you got anything for news for this week?
This week I don't, surprisingly enough. I had seen the Cold War miniatures that Ralph had been talking about. They'll also work for Canadians for the late 80s because we were still using those steel helmets.
Were you?
Oh yeah, we used them till I think we started getting rid of them around. Well, we started our UN Peacekeeper started using them in the Kevlar helmets in the early 90s.
Oh wow, that late? Huh?
Yeah.
Man. We're talking about like the old
the K-pot. And then the steel pot. So your steel pot. So your Vietnam era steel pot.
Yeah.
I had that in basic training in AIT when I got to jump school. That was when I got my first K-pot or Kevlar. And then when I was at 82nd, we got everything new. So I got a brand new K-pot, and I had my first was an M16A2. So wow, you guys had steel pots all the way up to the 90s?
Well, we still were using 30s into the 80s.
Wow.
We use things to death. That's what we do.
I mean, there are days where I miss the old steel pot because at least you could cook in it,
Yeah.
Or heat up water to wash up if you're in the field.
Well, we used our FNC1s, our FALs, up until I think most reserve units, they were all replaced by 89.
Wow.
And we were still using the 303 infield.
Shut up.
Till last month.
Come on.
Oh, I'm not lying. The Canadian Rangers, which is a kind of a paramilitary part of the Canadian Armed Forces. They do scouting and teach field skills to soldiers and stuff like that. They're usually Aboriginal, but not always. And they are in the northern parts of Canada. And the 303 infield has just been replaced by, what is it, a Finnish rifle? What the heck is the Tika? It got replaced by a Tika. And so we've used the 303 infield up until like a month ago, and they just started getting their new rifles. Yeah, because of the way the cold is up here. I was just
going to say, that sounds like a weapon designed for cold weather use.
Yeah, the 303 infield was an awesome rifle, but it probably should have been replaced a while.
Which model were you guys using?
Which was the last one made? So it was is that Model 4? No, I can't remember. I remember using one when I was in Army Cadets here in
Wow.
Canada.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but it
303 is a
just
great
got
round.
Yeah, 303, and but parts started becoming an issue
I would say
and
so.
things like that, and so we they put out an order for a new rifle, and then the new rifle was picked few years back, and they just started getting them.
Wow.
So we use things to death here.
I was going to say, you were using 303s Enfields in 2018. I hesitate to ask what you guys were using in 1998 or
Well,
19.
our reserve artillery units are still using refurbished 105s that are, from the 1950s. They've been rebarreled and they're still being used.
I thought you were going to say smoothbore 6-pounders or something.
Yeah.
1988, we finally got rid of our Brown Bess, muskets from 1776.
Yeah. Well, we were still using Dakotas until 86, I believe.
Wow, man.
F-104s we used them right up until the F-18 started coming in the mid-80s.
Wow.
The flying coffins.
How about that?
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to Canada's version of jump school because it's the only jump school, at least at the time when I was in, that you'd go and part of your qualifications you had to jump out of a hot air balloon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that would be pretty cool.
We should a Zeppelin.
F-104, that's the Starfighter, right?
Yeah, the Starfighter.
Old Starfighter. They didn't know they were still in service in the 80s.
Yeah,
Holy
the Germans
cow.
the Germans were still using them as well.
Were they in the 80s?
Yeah.
I guess you're right. Now you're looking back on
The
it.
Greeks and the Italians as well. So
they're fast in a straight line.
Yeah.
I remember.
Air
not great for
combat
close
is never
air
in a
support,
straight
though.
line.
Well, actually, in the 60s and 70s when those things were designed, they really thought it was going to be a lot in a straight line, especially in Canada. The whole idea of an interceptor, it wasn't even a fighter, it was an interceptor, was how fast can you intercept the Russian bomber coming over the pole.
Yeah.
That was what what they thought the next phase of air warfare was really going to be like. It's a cheesy movie, but there's a little bit of truth in it. Top Gun, they talk about how there really is this thing called dogfighting, and you have to be able to pull a turn once in a while.
So, Jim, you'd think we would have been nicer to our northern neighbors and given them some nicer toys to use.
Some old F4 Wild Weasels.
I know,
Vietnam,
right?
some of this.
At least some Phantoms, huh?
Especially the way, I love the way, I don't know if they still do this, but I remember back in the day they used to do this. Canadians love to paint a fake canopy on the bottom of the aircraft. I love that. That's the neatest little trick. I have no idea how effective it is. It's just awesome.
Apparently, it was fairly effective. We still do it.
No kidding.
Yeah, you throw the enemy pilot off.
Well, it's always easier to pull up in a positive G than dive, and so you see a canopy on the bottom of the plane, you think he's going to pull towards you, all of a sudden he's pulling away from you, and that's it.
Well,
all right. So let's go ahead and move on to some gaming topics that people would like to talk about. Ralph, do you want to go first on your...
It's just, a couple of things. One of them was what seems to be now, I'm on a couple of the Facebook groups I'm on, especially like Modern Miniatures Gaming, and I'm on the Twilight 2000 group, and even on Spectre and a couple of others. The Cold War Gone Hot seems to, shall we say, reared its head again in a big way, in a massive, massive way. There seems to be a lot more companies producing for that era, and people looking at that and what might have been. What do people think?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or does it seem like
definitely?
I have to agree. I've seen it.
I think there's a big growth in modern wargaming. Take out the ultra modern, your Spectre and that kind of stuff. Just Cold War especially, and which leads me to another idea. I don't know if you guys heard. Unfortunately, another smaller gaming company is closing their doors this week. The guys that make Panzerfaust.
Oh,
Who was that?
Oh, the orc dwarf
Yeah, the fantasy.
yeah.
Yeah. So they've announced that they're going to be closing the doors. And unfortunately, it seems like, and this might be something to think about and discuss, is do you think, a lot of people said this is the golden age of miniature wargaming or gaming in general. I almost kind of relate it to the tech bubble. Do you think our bubble's kind of bursting and we're seeing consolidation now of companies? But on the same token, how this relates to us is I'm seeing a lot of growth in modern wargaming and a lot of consolidation in fantasy and sci-fi stuff, with the loss of Hawk War Games. Granted, they got bought out or taken over by TT Combat and some other games, but it just seems like there's been a lot of consolidation outside of historical / modern gaming.
yeah.
I don't think there's much. Well, modern's on the rise. I think you've got the big. That really is the big two, isn't it? You've got I would say FFG now are starting to gain a lot of traction, but I think that's predominantly because of the IP that they own.
Oh yeah, they got Star Wars. Come on,
Star Wars. It's an IP. It's a big IP. And then you've got Games Workshop, of course, with their IP of Warhammer. And I think that's your sci-fi covered. Yes, you've got Corvus Belli with Infinity and things like that. But me up here in the northeast of England, there might be some Infinity players, but I've not, shall we say, seen much action in the gaming groups I've been to with Infinity. But yeah, you see more people playing Warhammer, and you see more people playing, with the FFG than you do those. Fantasy, is Age of Sigmar big, or is Mantic more taking that fantasy mantle with Kings of War?
I would ask if either of them are actually qualified as a war game.
Whoa.
Wow, Jim. Ouch.
That's
Ronnie, if you're listening, I love you. I love Kings of War, Mantic rocks. Ronnie, don't listen to Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There we go. Well, let's have that disclaimer. The opinions of a Riskin do not necessarily represent.
opinions.
Look, I've always resisted, and kind of my hackles have kind of raised up a little bit whenever somebody mentions that we're in the golden age of wargaming.
Our illustrious leader has mentioned that many a day.
I do not agree. I do not agree at all. Now, if you specify it to, are we in the golden age of miniature wargaming, I would agree with that 100%.
Yes.
As far as the golden age of gaming, no.
Jim,
No, the golden age.
I think the
it's
70s and
stupid.
early 80s were the golden age of wargaming. When you had
That was the correct answer. That was the correct answer. Yes, all the good. All my favorite.
Be careful.
Let me quickly amend that. All my favorite games are from the the 70s and the early 80s. By the mid, GDW Assault was like the last really big game that I really super enjoy. I do like Battle Group. Battle Group is much more modern. Much more recent. I do enjoy. It is. It's I talk to people on the website. People who know. As far as why do you like Battle Group more than the other ones? I'm like, dude, trust me, okay. The list is like too long to alphabetize. Just trust me, it's better. But I lost my train of thought now. I'm sorry, Ruff. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just.
It's all right. No, it's all right. I think what it is actually is it's twofold. I don't think we're in the golden age of miniature wargaming. We're in a decent age. I don't think it's the golden age, as Jim said. I think it's back in the 80s. I think what it is we are in a golden age of Dungeons and Dragons role playing. That's where I think people are distincting or are getting mixed up, because D&D, especially with the streaming out there, the Critical Roles, the Wizards of the Coast themselves doing their own streaming, Dungeons and Dragons streaming or role-playing streaming has taken off, and D&D is as popular as ever. It's more popular now. I think with miniatures though, miniature gaming, it's growing, but as people have pointed out, I think there's a lot of consolidation with IPs, with comfortable IPs. Let's be honest. Sci-fi and fantasy are comfortable.
I got three pretty quick points. Number one, on Star Wars and how why FFG might be doing this. This is again a complete guess. Mm-hmm. I'm no industry insider. I always have almost nothing to say when it comes to the news segment, so I'm completely just taking a shot here. But I would say that maybe one of the reasons FFG is doing so well with their Star Wars IP miniatures and tabletop games is because EA is doing so terrible with their. They are. Right? Yeah. EA bought lock, stock, and barrel. They own the whole shebang when it comes to Star Wars video games, and they are running it straight into the ground. Yeah. And so it's almost like if you want to play Star Wars, you almost don't have a choice. You have to pick up miniatures. I don't want to wish anyone ill, but I'm almost if it gets bought by somebody else or there's a change in the direction of EA or something like that, and Star Wars video gaming becomes a big thing again, is that going to maybe affect FFG? Who knows? Again, I'm totally spitballing here. So point number two is about Mantic and about Kings of War. The only one I should qualify what I was saying earlier, that the only version I saw was version 1. I understand they came out with a second version, and the game that I play when I want to play fantasy, and I also use this for American Revolution, believe it or not, is TSR. Talking about the golden age of gaming, TSR's battle system that they came out with. Advanced Combat back in the 80s. Yeah, I use second edition for that because I tried first edition and it didn't really work out for me. It's radically different. Second edition is really awesome. You can do a lot with it. Like I said, you can play D&D with it. You can play Battle of Hubbardton, in the American Revolution with it. Results are on the site. So I can see where Mantic got, or where Kings of War draws all of its inspiration from. I'm like, oh, that rules from Battle System. That rules from, Mantic does do one thing noticeably better, and that's how they handle the casualties. You take the whole block off the game at once. You don't take off individual miniatures. It's an unrealistic way of handling the way medieval and ancient combat works. Let's face it, fantasy gaming is nothing more than historical ancients and historical medieval with better special effects. That's really all fantasy really is. Yeah.
Okay, so fantasy. I gotta get this out there before I forget. Who saw that Warlord's releasing a fantasy game?
I saw that. Rick Priestley is.
Yes. Again, so that's.
Is it going to be Old Hammer? Are we seeing a revision of Old Hammer?
Or is it going to be a derivative of? Is it going to be a make on his Gates of Antares rule set?
Oh, I hope not. I hope not.
Drawing dice, doing the Warlord mechanic of drawing the dice,
Has anybody played Gates of Antares?
Yeah,
I played it at Adepticon as a demo when it was when we were filming, when it was pre-release. It's a nice game, but it just didn't grab me. I felt like I was playing bolt action in space.
That's what I heard it was.
It is. It's bolt action in space. It is. I've got a copy of it. I bought the starter thing. It's D10 instead of D6s.
And in the results, I think we're backwards. You had to. Was that you roll under instead of over for your results, or something? I don't know. It just didn't for me. Rick, again, I apologize if you're listening. It's probably a great game. It wasn't for me. It wasn't. I don't know what I was expecting, but I think Ralph, have you actually played it?
No, I haven't played it. I didn't play it. I picked it up. I was going to do a GAR and a Concordia Force, and
I'll actually stand up from what you're describing. I haven't played the game myself, but I'll actually stand up for the game in its defense if what you're saying is true, whereas you always have to roll low. I always like that method better because, okay, your chance to do a certain thing, hit the enemy, make a rally, make a move over difficult terrain, whatever. Your chance is, it's easy to understand. Okay, a high number, I have a good chance. Low number, I have a poor chance. And then you have to roll on or under that number. That's how Darkstar is designed. I always find whenever I play like these 5-up games, 4-up games, Flames of War, Bolt Action, I have to take all the math and like reverse it in my head with every single transaction. It's like, wait, I have a good chance. A good chance is a 3-up. It's like you have to subtract a number from 6 to get a final result, and it's, I don't know. Maybe I'm too old-fashioned. I like games where you have to roll low. No, I'm serious. I like games where you have to roll low and get under a target number. That's all the old FASA games were back in the 70s. Back in the 80s, that's how BattleSec was. It's all about rolling low.
Yeah. Jim, you had a third point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
The third point was super brief. I was going to say I played a lot of D&D, believe it or not, back in the second edition FACO days. Those of you who are
Second edition was good, I think.
It's the best edition ever. Best.
We were talking about how D&D is like getting really popular. I'd say it's getting really popular again.
Yeah.
It was huge with first and second edition. It went through a huge slump with, I guess, fourth edition was really bad.
Fourth edition, it had issues with fourth edition. Fifth edition has just tightened it up completely, and it's streamlined. It's also actually easier from what I've been watching. I watch the D&D YouTube channel, and you've got the game designer Mike Mills is on there, Jeremy Crawford's on there, and Chris Perkins is on there as well. These are the people that work for Wizards. Mike Mills does his Happy Fun Hour, where he shows class design, and he brings in classes that will then be dropped into the Unearthed Arcana, which is their version of putting stuff out to playtest to the community.
Oh, cool.
And then anything that works in that will occasionally might end up in a book. So the past couple of books, that's where they've put these things that have been out of the community have now come back, being tuned again, and then put back out as an actual playable book. So yeah, D&D is just, I think it's just is killing it streaming wise. But
it's definitely making a comeback. I think it went through a rough patch in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it's definitely coming out of the woods now.
I used to live in D&D in the 80s. First edition, second edition. Every weekend I was playing that. When we weren't playing, I was designing, scenarios for us to play the next module. So yeah, I'm glad to see it coming back, but I'm still a second edition person at heart. Yes, it's a little bit complicated, but to me, it really felt like your own world. So, Chris, you had something with your Skirmish Sangin. Haven't you played it recently?
Yeah, we played recently. We played on a 4x4 table.
How'd it go?
And it went well. I got shot up real good.
Who are you playing against?
My son, who is laughing at me probably right now because he's in the room right now. I got shot up quite a bit. But what I was going to ask people is how much actual scenery do you put on the table? Because I've started making a bunch of scenery, and I thought, okay, well, I've got enough scenery for a 4x4 table. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, I don't think I have enough, like, small terrain pieces, like a car or something on the side of the road. I think I need to add more.
So how many firing lanes did you have? Do you have a lot of open space?
Yeah, there was a fair bit of open space because I got hit by a UAZ with a 12.7 and like a 50 in the back. Oof. And I almost lost one of my team members. The objective changed as soon as my one team member got wounded, and I then proceeded to try to get him out of there with the rest of the team I was with. But I was also outnumbered and a little bit outgunned, I think, because I made my guys like tier 1 operators almost.
So why don't you give us a rundown of the scenario that you were guys
I was just going to say, as far as like what kind of, how much terrain do you put on the table? Are you in Fallujah or are you in the Peshawar Highlands? Those are two different.
I did kind of the outskirts of a village. So there was a few buildings, but mostly bushes, hedges, trees, woods, some fencing, walls, that kind of thing. And I'm supposed to recover a down drone on the outskirts of this village.
Okay.
And I moved towards the village. I'm sneaking up, and I got about 3 turns into the game, and I kind of got spotted. And then everything started going wrong. And some of my die rolls were really bad. But yeah, I got the drone, started getting back, and then I got hit hard by a 50 cal. And so then I had to get the team member off the board. And I spent the next maybe turn and a half getting him off the board. But I got a little bit lucky in that I got into some woods and proceeded off the board at that point. But I could have been killed easily if my son had used his vehicle just a little bit more aggressively. But he just sat back and just started shooting at me. And if he had moved it up, I think I would have lost everybody, I think.
So what forces were you playing? Were you nationality-wise?
I was playing Ukrainian Special Forces, trying to recover a down drone, and versus DPR. So I was using the DPR as militia out of the book.
Okay.
I forget what. So I was using them. They weren't the greatest of troops, but then I thought, I'll give them the UAZ with the heavy machine gun on the back of it, and yeah, I went downhill as soon as.
So how many minis did you put on the table?
I had 5.
Okay.
He had.
So a short squad-ish.
It was fire team.
Yep.
And I think Alex had 16.
Okay, plus a vehicle.
Plus the vehicle. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if yours were tier 1, that ratio's about right. I mean, I probably would have used even more militia. If you're talking tier 1 with, I'm assuming top of the line gear, weapons. Yeah. And these are only militia rated. So yeah.
I have to say that I did pull it out, but I got shot up pretty bad. That 50 cal, and I was kind of out in the open.
I'd say cover and fire and movement.
Yeah, I got caught.
Did you use smoke, Chris?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Did someone watch Ariskini's videos from the bolt action boot camp? Fire and maneuver, and smoke is your friend.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I popped smoke as soon as I saw that UAZ driving up, and I found that I was caught in that field. That's bad rolling and just got caught in the bad situation. But I pulled it out. But it was a lot of fun.
That's good.
Rules are really fun. Yeah.
So what kind of luck? Do you have any light anti-armor, like a law or whatever?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nothing.
Well, the only vehicle he had, I couldn't remember. You said a UAZ.
Yeah, it's just
that's a soft skin vehicle anyway.
Yeah, I had one under the under barrel grenade launcher.
Okay.
And I got one round off on it, but it didn't hit. So, but I got off the board. I did pull it out at the end, but getting the team member off the board was fairly hard. I had to use the cover a little bit more smart, but like I said, if he had used that UAZ a little more aggressively, I would have been dead, I think.
Well, that UAZ is too much closer to a bunch of guys with assault rifles. Right? That's going to get Swiss cheese pretty quick. I would imagine.
Yeah, he pulled it up behind. Hey, I was really impressed. The kid pulled it up behind a wall and just started opening up on me.
There you go.
Nice. Well, so now that you've gotten a good game under your belt, what do you think of the rule set, and how did it make you feel? Did you feel involved in the game, or is it just like I'm moving miniatures with the rule set?
No, I actually felt that I was a bit concerned with each member and what they could do. I felt like they were individuals, not just miniatures.
Nice.
I felt that way. I think terrain is kind of key, because I had the field that I got caught in way too big. There was if I put a tractor out in the middle of it, it would have probably helped.
But to Jim's point, if you're modeling it after a region, some areas just don't have a lot of terrain. But there are natural terrain features like a a gully or a creek or a wadi or whatever. So
Yeah.
you kind of put those in count. But sometimes it's just movement. How do I move under cover? Covering fire. Sometimes you have to cross an open field, and it's just
it's there. You have to do it.
I mean, if it's a 4x4 table, you're at 28 millimeter. I'm assuming this is a true line of sight game.
Yeah.
It is.
So that means the miniatures have to be in scale with the terrain. I feel that to answer your earlier question, I usually feel that a lot of people put too much terrain on the table. Yeah. And I think the function of that is this just me. This might be another edition of Oriskany, cries about 28 millimeter gaming. is, people don't realize how small a 28 millimeter battlefield is. I mean, these 4x6 tables that we were playing with at the Bolt Action Boot Camp, we were talking about, let's have tanks on the table. I'm like, no, let's go out and have a smoke. And we went out to the smoke. Yeah. We went out to and G, you've been there. We go to that parking lot. Yeah. That's out in front of the BOW studio. I'm like, that's a 6x4 table, a parking lot. Mm. It's 70 meters by. Literally just I sat there and I paced it out. Like, let's walk. Let's take 1 yard per pace. This is an entire 6x4 table would fit in this parking lot. You're going to have 6 tanks in here duking it out in a parking lot. I mean, that's. So as far as a 4x4 table, that's going to be 200 feet on the side. That's not a lot of terrain. It's going to be like a couple trees, maybe a bush, and one building. Unless you're in a city. So again, that's it would have been nice if I had more terrain out there to use. That's what smoke's for. You literally create your own terrain. I'm not saying it's.
Sorry, Jim.
No, I'm not saying it's easy because I've never played the game, but I just happen to feel that unless you're playing an urban combat, which for moderns is going to become more and more and more prevalent. Yeah. So, but if you're out in the countryside somewhere, honestly, I think a lot of people put, if anything, too much terrain on a 4x4 or 4x6 28 millimeter table.
Is it because we fall into that trap? Because if you look at going to look at the Beast of War tables because they do look nice, but they just seem to cram a lot of terrain on to do, to try and create those fire lanes so it doesn't become people throwing dice at each other, which, if you don't have that, it just seems they'll drop in a building, they'll drop in some bushes and things like that, and especially in a desert, Well,
their tables are the tables at the boot camp were definitely thoughtful. They weren't like the Warhammer 40K. Here's a bush, here's a tree, here's a hill. They were thought out and they were planned, and they each table told a story. For the Western Desert, your average table should look like a pool table with a canvas sheet over it or something. So probably I would say that from a historical perspective, the tables are way they have way too much stuff on them. But from an artistic perspective or from a gaming perspective, I think they did a really great job because they don't just load up terrain. Now, some players will just look. I bought this terrain. It cost me a lot of money, or I painted this terrain, or I built this terrain. Damn it, I want to use it. And so, before you know it, they have these. You're playing in the Black Forest. As far as just there's 50,000 trees on the table, and it becomes a little too crowded. If that's what you're going for, great. But I would just be a little wary of that.
Yeah, I have to say that the realistic ranges are the best part of the game.
Are they good?
Oh, they were so good. If you could see somebody, you could shoot them. It wasn't. Totally, yeah. It's not 12 inches, 24 inches thing. It's you can see them, you can shoot at them. You can hit them. Yeah,
I have an assault rifle, and this whole table is 200 feet long. Absolutely.
It was really good.
Yeah. Awesome. The interesting thing is because I've got was something I've had to play around and looked at them as well as what I quite enjoy doing, especially with it, is creating the fire team based around I've got a British warrior. I've got one of the British warriors, so I've created an 8-man Fusilier fire team with the warrior for support. So that might be something to have a play around with, because then you're talking an infantry fighting vehicle which can lay down a lot of fire. And there's a lot of scenarios built around that as well, with the dispatches books and the other stuff. Did you manage to get that? Not just the dispatches book, but the scenarios.
I got the core rule book and both dispatches, and I will be adding to the next scenario BTR or something along those lines. But we played a small game because we had a couple hours, and it was really good. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because one of the interesting scenarios in the books is the sniper hunt, which is a really interesting scenario from point. So it's I think it's one off 4 sniper or sniper team against a patrol, and it's them hunting the sniper. And I think every turn you roll to see if you can spot where he is, and if you don't, then you're basically creeping through the village to try and locate the sniper that's been attacking the forces.
Awesome.
That's a good one.
So to kind of close out the show, the last thing I want to talk about is to go outside the miniatures realm of modern gaming and kind of circle back to RPG. One of the things I did purchase over our little break was Ghost Ops, the Covert Operations RPG.
It's a good one.
So I guess this was a Kickstarter.
It was. I backed it on Kickstarter.
Okay. Have you played it yet, Ralph?
I haven't played it. I want to play it. I want to run it, actually. It's one of the things I'm thinking about for the new year.
You're hired.
Which I'll...
That was fast.
I'm in.
Fast, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think we should do a stream. What do you think?
I was thinking possibly, yeah. I mean, what we might do is open it up to the Beast of War on tabletop and the SITREP community and see if anybody else wants to join. And we'll try and arrange times. Me being in the UK and other people being worldwide, and we'll have to try and arrange it sometime, and it will probably have to be at a weekend, I think, just because
do an all-nighter, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Can you tell by my voice? I'm really happy about that. Yeah. I've done that when I was younger. We used to pull all-nighters role-playing. We did Star Trek role-playing game all night, the old FASA one. We did Freedom Force, which was Avalon Hill, I think. It was some massive, huge, crazy role-playing game. Did Twilight 2000. Did Moral Project as well. But yeah, I'm thinking about possibly running Ghost Ops. I've got some ideas. I've got some thoughts about it. Because it plays in that Tom Clancy, Jason Bourne sort of area. So not necessarily modern per se, as in modern conflicts, but it plays within that dark area that seems to be growing within the news and what's been going on worldwide. Yeah. It plays in those gaps, which I think is more interesting.
Like modern battlefield combat, or more like modern espionage?
It's more techno. I would say it's techno thriller. So it's very Tom Clancy. So it's very Rainbow Six.
So Jim, if you want to put it into perspective, I just got the book the other day, so I haven't had a chance to read it cover to cover. But skimming through it, it reminds me of the special section at CIA. The guys, the black op guys that go out and do those deeds that we really don't want to know about.
Right.
Yeah, it's very techno-thrillery, Tom Clancy-ish. What's interesting is there was a demo game run, and I think it was at Gen Con, and the intro of the demo game that did record it was a parachute jump, and they had the different like 10,000, 5,000, broken down into the feet, and they had miniatures to signify where the players were, for opening their parachutes. And they were using miniatures for that. I think there was a supernatural element, because when you looked at it, it looked like we were being attacked by the vampire things from Conflict 47. But, it was just an interesting way of denoting we're going to be role-playing with some miniatures. He has the ranges of, you jumped out this parachute, so 15, 10, 5, 1, ground, that type of thing.
Nice.
It was just a really interesting way of doing it. The other thing as well is if you get later into the book, they've got their own skirmish rules. It's only 2 or 3 pages,
Yeah, see that.
but they've created some skirmish rules within there as well, which is interesting. So it's bringing in role playing and wargaming together to use minis. But yes, it's something I'm thinking about for the new year. We'll see.
Yeah, I think this has to happen, Ralph. I don't think this is a let's see. Let's make it.
Yeah,
let's make it happen.
It sounds like a let's make it happen. Yeah,
let's make it happen. That's really cool.
We will have a chat off stream.
Yes, we will definitely try and coordinate something. That sounds really good. And then Jim, I think you and I are going to have to play some Panzer Leader or Panzer Blitz or something on your web.
Oh yeah,
that sounds.
We will. I will add you to the. I will add you to the schedule or
Excellent.
rotation or whatever.
Excellent. So
you'll have to put a link to the stream, Jim, so people can.
Yeah.
This web tool that I use has a record function. I'm gonna have to try and play around with it and see if I can record it.
I would recommend Twitch, to be honest. I think Twitch you're probably safer because then you can create the VODs and you can then create a Jim's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Or use the Sitrep YouTube channel.
Yeah. I think Twitch would be a good way to go. And you can always use OBS to stream right to Twitch. So you can interface that with your software you're currently using. And you should be able to live stream from there. So, I mean, there's many ways to do it, obviously. You know, if we can't figure it out, Lloydie could. So,
yeah. This is our second weekend doing it, so we're still in like the baby steps phase of it. But I tell you what, it's taken off a lot faster than I thought it was going to take off. So,
it just makes my heart happy to hear that there are people actually wanting to play old Hex Encounter games.
It's again, I keep telling the story, but when on tabletop Beasts of War came out with a project feature when Beasts of War 2.0 first rolled out. I was like, oh, I should put something on there to be supportive or whatever. I have nothing going on with miniatures right now. Let me throw on some of this Darkstar stuff. And before I know it, I mean, have you guys seen that project lately? We're getting ready. We're past 1,700 recommendations.
Nice.
I mean, it's absolutely insane.
There was a guy posted up 3D prints, didn't he? He printed.
There are 2 child threads, one from LSR 2590 and one from Bloodstrike up in Canada, who is just cranking out 3D miniatures or 3D print miniatures. He's making them himself based on the stuff that's posted in the game, but or posted in the parent project thread, whatever you want to call it. But the point of the story is, I didn't think anyone was going to get into this because it is an old school 1980s. The game takes 4 and 5 hours to play. It's got these huge charts. It looks like BattleTech in space. To get like sheet protectors. But it's an old school, and people are just eating it up. And I think it harks back a little bit to what we were talking about previously, where when was the golden age of gaming? I'm not saying that we're ever going to be the majority, but there is a real appetite out there for games that don't fit on 3 sheets of paper, or games that don't play in 45 minutes, or games that didn't come out last week on Kickstarter. These are games that have a real center of gravity to them. You pick it up, you get done with it, you're like, holy crap, I just played a game. I think that there's going to be obviously we'll always be the minority, but we're small, but we're fierce.
That's right.
So there's definitely a I don't want to say a market for it, but there's definitely an audience for it. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's because of the fact is a lot of new gamers have never seen, shall we say, that part of gaming.
Yeah, it's new to some
a lot of the people that are coming new to gaming have never seen, say, Advanced Squad Leader, even BattleTech, or they might have seen BattleTech on a PC, but they've never seen it on a table.
They've seen MechWarrior, not BattleTech.
They've seen MechWarrior and not BattleTech. Even though I've got the new BattleTech game on the PC, which is really good. It reminds me of the tabletop game. But they have never played those games. They've never played in that environment. It's a little bit like sort of linking in with the modern and stuff was when Warlord re-released, Osprey re-released Colditz, because they re-released Castle Cold. It's the old board game.
Yep.
Got a re-release, didn't it?
I have that one. It's great.
How excellent game. Loved the game. How many people bought that had never seen the original?
I never saw the original. I bought it from research.
Yeah, I used to have a copy of the original when it came out, so I'm showing Mage a little bit. So, how many people have seen that, or how many people have played the original version of Axes and Allies, which I've got sitting somewhere along Shogun. So there's been a resurgence of this type of gaming because people are just wanting to experience it.
Yeah, it's almost the old adage, "What is old is now new." Because it's come to a point in generations where their parents never played it, so they've never seen it. To them, it's new. To us, it's classic, and it's what we grew up on. So, excellent, guys. That was a great show. Any last thoughts before we close out for today?
No, not really.
No.
Definitely a great show. Great talk.
Yeah. So to everybody out there, we appreciate you chiming in and listening, and make sure you comment. Follow us on the Facebook page, Set Rep Podcast. We will also link. Oh, I forgot to mention, you can find this podcast not only on the YouTube or on Pieces of War / on Tabletop, but we're also on Google Podcasts and in Apple Music. So the podcast has been published on those as well. So you can get on all those formats, which is rather exciting.
The old episodes on Jay, because we've had a couple of people asking, haven't we, about all the previous episodes, like episode 1 and stuff.
So I will have to go back and upload the old episodes. I will try and do that this weekend. I might have some downtime where I can catch up on those. So we will definitely get those up there, but you can find us on many different platforms. And obviously you can find us on Podbean. That's our home hosting site. So until the next time, for Chris, Ralph, Jim, I'm G. We're going to RTB, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.